I go, this is what's on everybody's mind. I had to bring back my monkey. I took it out for a while because I thought everyone was kind of getting tired of it. But it's just with the markets, our production cost. I've had some humdinger questions in the last 6 months of just trying to cut costs. What can we do, can we save this? Can we replant this? Can we, we're just trying to think outside the box to help, cut some corners and make things work a little bit better. So I just kind of put together some things today that I've been seeing. Thought we might talk a little bit on fall armyworms. Anybody in here have fall armyworm issues? Is it me, or is it just every year anymore? Used to be 1 out of 10, 5, 20 years, you'd have seemed like in the last 3 or 4 years, it's been every year. We just have to almost budget it in. We'll talk a little bit about that. I've just got some updates of some things to be thinking about as we move forward. So I cover a pretty big area, southwest, and then also over southeast. I go as far as Atoka County. I'm supposed to be over there in Lane tomorrow or the next day, putting in some forage demo plots. So anyways, I get to see a lot of area, and of course it's always diverse. But 30-day rainfall, not too shabby really. We've had some pretty good moisture. We've had a lot of heat too. I mean, you think, well, we got a good rain and moisture, it's been going. Its moisture line's dropped a lot in the last week. Has it been good growing conditions to get wheat up and going? Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty good. It's been a little warmer than normal. But we've had the moisture there to kind of get us up and going. Is there anyone's here still planting wheat for pasture? Raise your hand, because I am. And we are at home.
Got that yesterday.
We're at this. And I've looked at some wheat pasture around my area that just the circumstances, they're normally planting the end of August, first week of September, but it got pushed back to about the middle of September. And sometimes, the way these years are, it's better, there's a point in there where some doesn't look very good, and if we waited an extra week or 10 days, it looks a lot better. So, I've also seen it where even planted this late, if we stay warm, we still make some good forage in the end. Yes?
So, you were talking about armyworms. We usually plant late, so we haven't had the issue that a lot of people have. Where's the...
We'll talk about that.
Okay,
we'll move forward on that here in just a second.
Thank you.
So, since we're talking fall armyworms, large striped caterpillar, approximately 1.5 inches in length. They always have that inverted Y on its head there, and that's typically how you distinguish the fall armyworm. And you sometimes, and a lot of times, you'll have fields with multiple worm sizes. So you'll have big ones and small ones. The bigger ones, obviously, they're getting ready to cycle out, but it's the small ones. So I've had some guys that's been spraying. You can kind of see out in the field the spots where they start, and trying to stay on top of it and protect it is where we're at. They can infest it through frost. So until the first hard freeze, we can have fall armyworm issues. So when's the first hard freeze going to be? Well, normally we're starting to cool off by now, but this is Oklahoma, and it can change in a drop of a hat. Larva stage for fall armyworms is around 21 to 28 days. And in the larva damaging stage, we kind of start feeding on leaves. You start seeing this window painting where they're starting to feed on that. It's got that look to the leaves. As you kind of look out in the field, you can kind of see that. And then we also we can have issues with crowns and stand loss.
So, are you saying 21 to 28 days after planting, or?
That's just the cycle of the larva.
All right, thank you.
You bet. I get calls all the time. It seemed like my crop disappeared overnight. I went by it that morning, and that afternoon, part of it was gone. It typically kind of goes unnoticed at first, and it goes back to scouting and checking just as much as you can, looking in your bar ditches, just trying to figure out where these fall armyworms are trying to find tender things to eat. What's the most tender thing right now? Cool seasons. If we look at this right here, 93.5% of all the food that fall armyworm caterpillar will consume is in the last 5.7 to 6 days of its life. So the bigger they are, the more they're going to consume. So if you've got a bunch of small ones out there, within so many days that they're going to get bigger and start consuming more. So it's good to try to get out, kind of keep an eye out on it. We've got producers that I don't know anymore if we're about to the point where it's almost we're trying to be proactive and spray it to kind of protect it if we do see some out there. What's the cost of spraying it versus replanting it? Do you really need that forage? Most of the time, the insecticide, depending on what you use, the application costs more than the insecticide. Most people are running Lambda-Cy. There'll be some Prevathon and stuff like that sprayed as well. But trying to keep our costs down, I'm going to probably say anywhere from $6 to $8 an acre, just ballpark. And everybody, we can do it cheaper if we do it ourselves and different things like that. But that's kind of what I typically hear. So fall armyworm management in wheat and sporadic in occurrence. It'll occur along the borders. We can kill that seedling wheat. Treat when we see around 2 to 3 worms per linear foot. That's in the interior of the field. So last year, we had some fall armyworms also try to farm on the side. That's after hours and weekends. So I do some things and try to figure out what's going on to help everybody else too, and try to go through some of this stuff at the same time. My dad had planted some alfalfa on the bottom terrace, and then the rest of the field kind of went up the hill as the other terraces. We had some crabgrass, we cut and baled that. The armyworms were terrible. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Armyworms just everywhere. The ground was like moving. Well, we sprayed an older stand, and then it was too wet to spray what we just planted. It had rained a bunch. It was too wet. And so what I did is I just raised the booms up, and I went along the edge as fast as I could. It was muddy, and I made a border spray, and it saved the day. They never, once they hit that spot, they didn't move across into that young tender alfalfa. So if you get into a situation, doing some border sprays around the perimeters, kind of keep some things at bay, that seemed to work last year. Is it going to protect you for the whole field? No, but it may keep them from kind of moving in if you get in a bad situation. Just some other things here. 2 to 3 worms, as I said. Try to scout 5 or more locations in the field. Start at the gate and drive across the field, do a zigzag, whatever. You can kind of look for those patterns. 1 to 2 larvae per square foot in alfalfa. Also got a lot of questions last year on grass hay pastures. If you're depending on that, either maybe some stockpile Bermuda grass, or you need that pasture, 3 to 4 worms per square foot if they're bad. And what I saw last year was a lot of the parameters around the borders got ate up, but the center was okay. So that's just kind of some thresholds and some things to be thinking about. most active in the morning, late in the evening, and just try to scout fields. So chemical control, most of the time that's how we're controlling this. We're spraying a pyrethroid, a lambda-cy. You can run some Lore's bands, some things like some tank mixes like that. But lambda-cy does a really good job on worms at this point. And it's relatively, we're trying to keep our costs down. Chemical control, I put this up here, just sometimes we don't get the best control, and a lot of that goes to our environment. Dry conditions after the wheat submerged. We've been real humid this year. Anybody notice that? I don't know. This is the most humid year I think I've ever experienced, because we had so much rain up front in the spring. But as far as insecticides and herbicides, to me they've worked a little bit better because we've had better growing conditions. Now there was a point there where it got hot and dry, but normally with more humid conditions, these insecticides and things work a little bit better. So sometimes we'll run into some issues of not getting it controlled like we would like in the beginning. But with the way things are, we do have a little moisture this year. Seems like everything seems to be working pretty decent at this point. And then continued egg lay well into the fall. So just because we spray it once, we hope that's all we have to spray it, but we can, if there's we may have to hit it again. But sometimes we get to the point where we can knock them out and buy some time, get a little more size on that wheat for cool season, and then they'll kind of cycle around. Cultural control, basically to the killing frost. Late plantings, what I've seen seems to reduce the incidence of fall armyworms. Depending on the year, probably don't make as much forage in the beginning. So replanting is an option, but as we get really late, thinking about, maybe we'll start grazing it in the spring, or maybe we'll cut and bale it for hay or something like that if we get into that situation. But most everyone needs the forage, the fall forage. That's what we're striving for to get. This is it's kind of from last year that I found on as far as kind of our average first freeze event. So hopefully in another month, 30 days, we won't have to worry about it. That's what I'm hoping. But this is Oklahoma, and things is Mother Nature throws its curveballs. So I know this is kind of, I did get some OSU wheat variety books, just got them last week, and I left the box in my office. I gave another box to Josh Michon, the Northwest area agronomist. But if you want to look at all the wheat variety trial information, go to the wheat.okstate.edu. You can pull that up. You may already have your wheat varieties. You may already have things in place, but that's where the data is at. It also has the forage clippings that we've done out here at the research station from last year and things on different varieties. Just a couple of quick things. And most of the time, this is kind of past the point, but what do we need for forage? We need the nitrogen. So if you're trying to skimp on nitrogen, probably not going to make the forage. What is the source of N? What's most everyone use? 46 OO urea, or maybe some liquid, or some using the anhydrous. Yeah. What's your cost per pound of N? What's it costing you to put that on? And what source that is. It's going to take 30 pounds of nitrogen to make 1,000 pounds of forage. So we always, cool seasons, whether that's wheat, ryegrass, it's 60 pounds per ton. That's what OSU goes by, and that's what we continue to go by. If we're really trying to push the envelope and forage, and I used to say grain, but I don't know if anything's gonna get combined until the wheat price goes up to $6 or $7. But we're still gonna make hay probably out of it, or we're gonna graze it. So split applications of nitrogen, put some on in the fall, possibly put some on in the spring, depending on what our objectives are. But it takes nitrogen to grow forage and bushels of grain. Any questions on nitrogen? Everyone, as far as applying 4600, a lot of times the best way that I like to do it is spread it and work it in. Why is that?
No-tilling, that's not a very good plan, though.
I know. How do you get your nitrogen on?
It's hard, that's the deal.
Stream it on.
Stream it on. That's an option because 32 or 28, that's half ammonium nitrate and half urea. So some of that's going to go in and some of it's going to stay on top until it rains and washes it in. You catch a day where it's very wet. Say we have a real wet morning and you go out there and you spread urea. Where does it go? Yeah. It rains that morning. Say it rains a ½ inch and you go out there and you put it on top of what it just rained. Where does it go? It goes up. If you put it on in front of a rain, you get a ½ inch rain, where does it go? Timing is so critical with urea. That's what is so, everyone probably remembers ammonium nitrate, 3400. It would go in a dew. And it's harder to find that. You can still find some, but the price and the cost is a lot higher than 46. So a lot of what most people do is they put a little more 46 on to adjust some of that loss. Any questions on? We can put some, some of these different inhibitors and things to kind of preserve it. They preserve that prill, that Nutrisphere, Agritane. We're going to get about a week out of that, if best, before that starts breaking that prill down. So if it doesn't rain within that week, and that's best case scenario. Yes.
But if you're working at deep, can you get it too deep, or?
Oh, I don't know if you can get it too. The deeper it is in the planting zone, the deeper it's going to. When it rains, it's going to go down. And typically we plant an inch. So lightly incorporate or harrow in or just kind of get it in the soil. Spring tooth, field cultivator, something to just stir it in, and it should be just fine. Any other questions? Great questions. Phosphorus in furrow. Anybody doing this? Sometimes.
It's not too high.
You running 1034?
Yeah, pretty much.
So 1034, 1846.0. You may be seeing some 1152.0 MAP coming in, and that's because there was so much. We had some barge issues, if anybody remembers. There was a lot of it sitting on barges, 1846.0, and we don't know what, they'll have to recondition it. So there's will be more fines and possibly clump. We don't know. I just heard even last month, which we're already into October now, that we could possibly see some MAP coming in from the Midwest states, which is 1152. To me, if you want to make forage, this works. This is simple. This will make us some really good forage. Just putting a little banding, some phosphorus in furrow. If you've got the capability, man, do it. It really helps us set up the root system and really gets this weed up and going and making a factory to capture the sunlight to produce the forage.
I had last year I had one of my tips was out of the strip, so it didn't have the orifice in it. So I think all of my liquid fertilizer went in that one hole, and you can sure see it.
Yeah.
It's dark green. Everything else is a little pale.
It will also help with tying up aluminum. So we have low soil pH. If we band some phosphorus in furrow, that'll tie up aluminum, and that'll help us on a low soil pH. What's the best thing for soil pH? Ag line, correcting it. Can we do that on every farm? It's kind of hard if some of it's leased, and we don't know if we're going to have it for. You want to make sure you're going to have it for at least 5 years before you apply some lime to get the benefits out of it. But this is a Band-Aid. You can do it every year, and it works. So I'm a huge fan of banding some in furrow phosphorus. Now, it can be a pain. I'm not. The liquid on a humid day is really good. It seems like to me the liquid gets everywhere. On the drill, you got to wash stuff off. Now, with 1846-0, if the dew point's 70 and humidity's 90, it's just like chewing gum in that drill. So you have to dump every morning or every evening, dump your trays, and then refill and clean out for the next day. But it works really good as far as making some forage. And we can reduce cost. It's another thing. We can reduce our cost. So if we look at phosphorus in furrow, none, 130 broadcast, 65 in furrow, that's pretty significant savings. And we're getting the same results. 65, 130. And then 130 in furrow, which is a lot, at 1,550. But that just tells me that I can cut my DAP down and still have the same results as 130 pounds of broadcast. Long time ago when I was younger, we used to band everything. Had some old drills. And I didn't know what we were doing at the time, but I'd ask Dad or Grandpa, how much were we putting on? Well, 100, 150 pounds through the drill. But we had them set where the wheat and the fertilizer would run out at the same time, right? So you'd fill them both. And that was just kind of the 1846 was cheap. So anyways, as production costs get higher, you can still cut that back and get some really good results. Lots of questions on broadcast and drilled. Who in here broadcasts? Who in here drills? Drill, broadcast. It's all to me about seed distribution and getting an even stand and getting that seed distributed across the field. If you can do it with a spreader, that's great. Sometimes wind, the way the wind blows will blow that wheat, and then how many feet you've got and how good of a spreader it is, things like that. If you catch the right rain, it works really well. If it's really dry, you catch 2/10, it'll come up and die if it doesn't have the subsoil moisture down below. Last year it worked perfect. This year it's worked pretty good too with the type of rains we've had. Does anyone have some good looking broadcast wheat right now?
I've done it for 20 years, and this is the worst year I've ever
It's the
had.
worst.
Yeah. But I got an inch and a quarter to an inch and a half of hard rain.
Hard rain.
Just 2 days after I did it. Didn't have a chance to sprout and get started.
Yeah.
And I think it crushed it. And like I say, but it worked like a champ for 20,
Well, it's agriculture. Yeah. That's pretty good.
I got about a half a stand, I think, and that may be optimistic.
Okay.
But there's a lot of ryegrass coming, so, I'm not going to tear it up.
No, and it's going to tiller and stool out, so it'll compensate some. When the wheat price is higher, we've got guys drilling. When the wheat price gets lower, we go to more broadcasting, and it just to try to cover it and get it done cheaper and faster because we need the forage. Anyways, any other questions on drill versus broadcast? luck of the draw. How lucky we want to get. Okay. New wheat variety, OSU, kind of give a few updates here. Anyone heard the OK Corral new wheat variety to come out? It's a beardless variety. It was actually 12206 last year, Cheyenne, in the wheat demos across the state. Hard red winter. Was reading some things the other day that it's probably the best beardless variety released since Deliver. Everyone remembers Deliver wheat. Dual purpose, graze out and hay. The thing with a lot of the beardless wheat varieties is it's hard to get quality into that plant. Now, if you're grazing out or hay, it's not that big a deal because you're just going to graze it out and make hay out of it. But if you want to take it to grain, this is a really good milling and baking quality wheat. It's right there on the same level as Smith's Gold. Everyone's heard of Smith's Gold wheat variety. It's getting a lot of attention from different chefs just because of the taste. It has a unique taste, and I think we're going to start seeing the way we've done things in the past on grain is, I think, beginning to change because we've got different varieties out here that we're matching up to what the consumer wants more instead of just bulk wheat. I think we're going to continue to see that. But getting a beardless wheat variety that is hard red, that we can graze, we can grain, is a hard package to try to get. And Dr. Carter's done a really good job. With this variety, we can see our test weights can kind of fall, but it has a really good disease package to it. And I think it's a great option for grazing and hay. And I think you'll see more about that. Anyone have any of this?
Do you think they're gonna pay a better price for this type of grain in the future? Is that what?
Yeah, I
And
think
how are you
so.
gonna separate it at the mill?
You're gonna have to package it yourself.
I have to keep it segregated.
You're gonna have to tell them this is what it is and.
Yep.
Cause they'll mix it with their crap.
Well, and it depends on who's taking it. There's a lot of discussion in the industry right now with how we're going to, it's kind of one of those what comes first, chicken or the egg. But I think there's going to be different storage for different varieties. There's going to be different needs, different milling, baking for different processors, and they're going to want. I want 100,000 bushels of this. I want 200,000 bushels of this, depending on the year, because I've not yet found a wheat variety that's perfect. Baker's Ann has the highest dough strength of any wheat variety out there, anywhere. Well, it's too high, so you have to blend it with some other varieties to get the characteristics that they want. But I think there will be one of these. Before too long, I think we're going to start seeing some things come out with quality, and you're going to, it's going to be managed a lot differently than it used to be.
It's gonna be like incentive programs, like CFE, or, are they gonna implement, or just?
I don't know just yet. I don't know. With the premium, there's also the discount. So if it doesn't meet the specs, you can get discounted for that. So I'm not for sure how this is all going to pan out. I've just heard talk in the industry.
It makes
This is where we're headed.
sense to me, but it also sounds a little scary for your local co-op because.
I think with that, we've got to figure out how to store it separately, and that's not the easiest thing to do when you have to go add more storage. But there's ways you can do some things to get us by. But we'll see how it goes. This is far-fetched here, but as these newer varieties keep coming out, there's a lot of quality, there's a lot of characteristics that the processors want. But we'll just kind of see how this all pans out. It's interesting times right now. Great question. Interaction.
Is that what they had planted at the research station around the edge?
Right there to the east.
Along the road?
Right before you get to the interstate, like right there on the south side.
Over on the east side where they had the plots last year. No, I'm sorry, it's on the west side.
West side of the interstate.
Yeah, where they had the plots around the edge.
Yeah, where all the Dr. Carver stuff is.
Yeah, and they had it.
That is
okay.
That's another one coming that I like. I think that one's going to be really good. That is actually a hard white wheat. That's not going to be released until January. It is a hard white, good disease package. Lots of leaf mass to it. I think it's going to be a good option for graze but making good hay. It looks like a really good.
Yeah, it looked really good.
But just looking at it and you compare it to other varieties out there, you could tell how strong the disease package was on it, because that leaf was just, it looked like it had a fungicide put on it because it was so clean. So that one's coming. It's just later on. Great questions.
You mean the information to be released in January, or?
I believe so. That's what they told me. They will release the variety in January for next year.
Have they got it named?
Not yet. It's OCW 1006 6W or something. So, shifting gears here on I've been getting calls too on good alfalfa weed control. Anyone here have alfalfa? Have problems with weeds? Obviously. Seems like we've got, in the last month, the pigweeds are terrible. Terrible. And getting calls on that, 2,4-DB. I've been recommending Pursuit, Mazapir, on that. It's a little higher, but if you go to running 2 or 3 quarts of 2,4-DB, that can be pretty high too.
You're talking established alfalfa with that?
Yes, yes. You have some young seedling alfalfa that have weeds in it. You can spray Pursuit or Mazapir on that. It's got to be up to the 2nd trifoliate for pigweeds. I typically don't worry too much about the summer annuals in alfalfa because normally a frost or freeze will get it. But if it's thick enough, yeah, it can definitely compete and cause some issues. I mostly worry about the cool season grasses competing with alfalfa. Ryegrass, wheat, rye, those things are really competitive and really need to be taken out, especially in those new stands of alfalfa that we just planted. But good stand management, that goes back to proper weed identification, kind of what we have out there. Fall seeded alfalfa, the PPI herbicides, those pre-plant incorporated, post herbicides, established alfalfa, dormant applications. I'm a huge fan. If we don't have a crop rotation restriction, if we're not going to take it out, like January, February, March, running some Velpar, Alpha Max Gold, great products as far as dormant application. And then we've got post application. But we're limited on our herbicides for alfalfa. We also have Roundup Ready, mixed bag. Some like it, some don't. I think a good stand, if you got a good stand, will just, that's your best weed control management. And then keeping that stand. New herbicide here, not for sure if anyone's used any of this or new. I just found out a few months ago it was labeled. They just currently got warrant labeled for a pre-emerge on alfalfa. I asked the question of, well, can we plant the alfalfa and then turn right back around and spray warrant before it comes up? It's not labeled for that. But it says here up to the 4th trifoliate stage for fall planting. So we still have to run some Eptam. If you wanted the PPI, Eptam or Bayland on there as a pre-plant incorporated. This is a good product. I think Warrant, as far as pigweed control, we can spray this after a cutting, catch the right rain or irrigate it in. This is a good herbicide. So it's acetochlor, and anyways, I think this will be a pretty good one. Private applicator licenses. Does everyone in here have their private applicator licenses that want it or need it? Because if you don't, you better get it. We're going to start transitioning to the new testing procedures at a later date in 2020. But from what I can gather, is there's not going to be any more packets. You're going to have to go to a testing site and test. So this is something that's coming up. If you've already have it, you're good for the, whatever, 4 more years, because we're almost another year. But after that, it's all going to be basically proctored, from what I was told. So there will be testing sites and different things. But until then, we're still going to have our packets and mail in the exams. So this is just some things that are coming up that I want everyone to be aware of. If you don't have it, we need to get it. Anyone hear anything on this? Or had heard anything yet? Yeah, I was kind of shocked too. I thought, well, you know, it'll be later on, maybe in 5 years. But the commercial and non-commercial starts this year. Like this month or into this month, something like that. So anyhow, I've got to sit down and figure out what we're supposed to be doing on this, to be honest with you. So summary, stick to the basics of agronomy. I'm a huge proponent of that. Reducing costs, try to stay efficient, stick to the things, the basics of agronomy. Try to take care for the, unlike the environment, take care of the things that we can control to set us up to be successful. Scout for pests. Keep scouting until we get a good frost or freeze. And with that, that's what I've got.
Any new herbicides for grass burrs in Bermuda?
Grass birds in Bermuda. No, unfortunately. I get a lot of calls on grass burrs, sand burrs, prairie 3-on. Everybody know what wiregrass, bullfield 3-on? There's not any good options. I mean, you basically have Pastora, you've got Plateau, you've got Prowl H2O, and you've got Roundup. It's tough. Good fertility program. We just have to work at it. There's not a silver bullet for it right now. I would say what I've been, seeing some producers do, and it's working pretty nice, is running that 8 ounces after a cut in the hay of Power Max or Roundup and cleaning up and doing a halfway decent job. But you're going to reduce a little bit of your forage for next cutting. If it's raining and everything's growing good, it can recoup a lot faster. But there's just no silver bullet out there. That I get calls all the time. Another one I get calls on is trying to kill old world blue stem out of Bermuda grass. It's pretty tough.
If you had it in a fairly small area, if you went in there and just round up it all and killed it, and could you burn that stuff then? Spot burn it? Doing good?
Yeah, I mean, how big an area are you talking?
Oh, half acre.
I'd probably just spray it with Roundup and let it sit.
What if you bail it and just burn your bale or whatever?
Burn your bale of hay?
Well,
or
if you bail
remove
the
it.
sticker, yeah.
You have to have a really hot fire. I mean, it's just not. Those seeds are protected so much that you may get some, but then you're gonna have a percentage that's still there. It's a tough,
I've had pretty good luck with a weed burner, but we're talking about, you know, a clump that maybe used to be 3 foot, you know, that's
Yeah.
just loaded with burrs and, I sterilize the seed and no, it don't come back.
I think, you know, there's not just a quick fix. I mean, if you got some clumps or some areas out there, I'd probably spot treat it. Like, you know, I just sit there and with Roundup. Yeah, you may have a spot out there. A lot of times, Bermuda grass will cover. You know, if you've got a big area, you know, I'd probably just try to control that area, and then with fertility and things, try to let Bermuda grass come back. It's a tough one. I don't have. Ron, do you have any expertise on sand? I mean, it's what everybody is fighting.
So if you do fertilize early in the year, because I've heard lots of people say that, but I haven't seen it.
Well, you need to get a soil test, kind of see what all you need. I mean, nitrogen. Now, you know, normally it's your this time of the year, or say after a freeze, or even in the winter. You know, phosphorus and potassium, we can go ahead and kind of put that on. But nitrogen, that's going to be, you know, right before green up or right during green up.
Like if he knew he had that problem for next year, though, he could fertilize really hard maybe, and that Bermuda could chunk some of that out.
That with, I would probably look at putting like some Prowl H2O down, like 2 or 3 quarts. I mean, the most you can put. It's a combination. It's herbicide with good fertility. That allows that to keep those grass birds at bay, and it allows that grass to outcompete them and thicken up. Great question. This is good stuff. Good interaction.
I've had good luck, Jerry, good luck on a small half-acre deal like that. You go out, if you've got a 25-gallon spread rate or something like that, just with a boom, just treat with pastoral.
Yeah.
And that has seemed to work. It will take out your crabgrass too, if it's a crabgrass Bermuda combination. But then again, I've used Pastora and MSMA both on my bar ditches this year and still had sandburrs come, so that's kind of a scary scenario.
Seemed like to me in the last 3 weeks, the grass birds, the crabgrass, man, stuff's growing fast.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because we're making up for lost time, but you couldn't hardly keep up with it. You know, if you did a yard, you can't hardly keep up. But good for the pasture. But a lot of sandburrs in the last 3 weeks. You can see the heads out there.
A side note I didn't say on my broadcasting deal, that I think the rain was a problem, but literally, and I've never had pigweeds on this 40-acre patch, and they just came absolutely wall to wall. At the same time and sprouted at the same time the week did.
Yep.
Besides, crabgrass has come in there, and I've got a nutgrass that has come. And the grasses are choking the wheat out too. So it's been a very, very challenging year for early production.
Yes, you had.
Yes, but I'm kind of embarrassed to say this. So, we grazed out our crabgrass where we planted wheat, and we have stickers on the back side of that started. I don't know how, but it's terrible. So for next year, if we just work that really early, will that help prevent some of that, or without?
So this is kind of
the same thing. We probably have to set. It's on the back side of that field, really, but it's in wheat pasture.
right. It's one of those deals. I'd keep it worked. Anytime that you don't work, it could cause. I mean, you got to keep it kind of say fresh, but you gotta kind of keep the grasses under control because they can, I mean, they're gonna come back with different rains and how we stir them up and things like that if we work the ground. You can let it, work it, let them come up and just spray. Let them sit until you get closer time to plant wheat. It's kind of the cost of running some Roundup. If you can run some cheap generic, and Roundup's very good on grass. Very good
So we're
grass.
not gonna, like, if it's the backside of that, just hit it with Roundup before we plant, probably.
Well, if you've got grass coming up, or if you're going to work it, just work it. Save that. Just kind of whatever.
I mean, it
Fits
was a
in.
good crop of them on the backside of that place this year, so.
I like to do some. What are those shows? Like I'm trying to think some reality shows like of running through them grass bursts. I'll give you $1,000 if you'll make it 100 foot or whatever, and go barefoot across all them. Because I've seen some. Man, you think, man, I hate to run across that barefoot.
So you wouldn't have to put anything to tilt it down, right? You wouldn't have to applicate it, like if you want to turn the ground?
Yeah. If you were going to go ahead and work it, I don't know if I'd spray it. Now, if you're in a no-till situation, then you just kind of have to spray it and keep working it. But it depends on how bad. If you get a flush of grass spurs up or crabgrass, how thick that is. And if you catch a rain and you can't get in there and get it, you can't. Sometimes guys will just go in there and try to spray it and then work the ground. It's just kind of getting things ready depending on your operation.
Yeah, I leased some acreage out here, and this year the stickers are so bad in there. I'm gonna have to tilt it up or do something, because they're just taking over.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's just easier to, you wouldn't have to try to kill the seed before you turn the ground. But
You really can't kill seeds. It's once they make seed, well, you could, if you catch them when they're very immature, you possibly can kill, get some control. But if they become hard and more mature and bigger, you're not going to kill them.
So even if you spray it and turn it in, seeds are still in there.
That's a sign to the cows.
Yeah, they're still in there.
Yeah, they can come back. They'll be there next year. That's the deal with like grass burrs. It has such a protected coat on it. That makes it very, very difficult to control. Unfortunately.